Hi everyone, it's DC the blacksmith, and I'm back to give my recap and review of almost the finale that is the saga of the confirmation of Judge Katanji Brown Jackson to be the 116th Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Okay, so this is the recap and review of the Senate on day, I think it was April 7th, Thursday, April 7th. I'll put the dates in the description as always. This is when the full Senate, all senators, voted to make Judge Katanji Brown Jackson Justice Katanji Brown Jackson. Okay, so they start off the day. I want to say the day started at 10 that day. So Mitch McConnell spoke first. He is not in support. He repeated that he wasn't in support of her. He's a Republican from Kentucky. We've now heard him repeat all these reasons several times, and I'm not going to go through them again. You know, it's the same. She's an activist judge. This is Democrat bullying. You know, the Democrats have bullied the Supreme Court. Mind you, I have a long memory. I remember after the recent, in the past, either year or two, DACA decision, I remember a bunch of Republicans went on the news station and they were not happy with either, I can't remember if it was Gorsuch or Kavanaugh who at that time joined the so-called liberal wing of the court. I can't remember which one, but I remember they talked about him, called him everything but a child of God. So it happens on both sides. It shouldn't happen. It's childish. Get over it. He says this is a political siege, yada, yada. He's not in support of her. We got it. Okay, so then they vote on two bills that passed unanimously, I think, both having to do with the Russian Ukrainian war. They were both bills that suspended normal trade with Russia and Belarus. Those passed 100-0, both of them, I believe. So then the mandatory quorum call was waived. I'm going through all of this for the dramatics of the historic moment. Just bear with me. Okay, so they had to vote to bring the debate on the nominee to a close. So they did a mandatory roll call vote, 53-47. So what that means is this was just a vote to end the debate. To end debate. We couldn't even just all join together to vote to just end the debate. Those three Republicans that joined over to vote to end the debate was Romney, Murkowski, and Susan Collins. Now, my issue is y'all couldn't even just vote to end the debate. That wasn't the vote on her. That was just a vote to end debate. We didn't even want to do that. But whatever. Let's move on. So, anyways, 53-47, motion passes to end debate on the nominee, Katanji Brown Jackson. After that, Senator Leahy speaks to the historic moment. He says this is the most important vote in his 40-year career. I don't know if that's 40 years he's been a senator or 40 years he's been in Congress in general as a congressman, representative, and as a Senate. I don't know, but he said 40 years, this is the most important vote that he's taking. He talks about her being the first public defender. Now, I heard somewhere where they said she's the first public defender in decades. I don't think that's accurate. I think that there's a difference between a public defender and somebody who is a defense attorney. A public defender works for the government, and they just take, quite honestly, they take whatever's given to them. Whatever case pops up, whoever they're going to defend, if it gets before them, that's what they take. And then there are attorneys who are defenders. They might work for maybe themselves, and then clients come to them and they pick and choose if they want to take that client's case to defend them or not. And then in criminal court. And then there's attorneys who work for organizations like the NAACP, and they are still a defender, but they're not a public defender. The NAACP will help assign cases that they have taken up, and they might work with a criminal defendant in that way. But a public defender works for the government, and they take whatever's given to them. So I think she is the first public defender on the court. Remember, there's a difference. There's all types of labels and classifications to differentiate all types of things. There's a difference between carrots and baby carrots. It's how it just is life. So again, keeping with Senator Leahy, the Democrat from Vermont, he says no one can argue her qualifications. He calls manufactured allegations, says she was met with contempt. It was distressing, disheartening, and saddening, and he hopes for more bipartisan support. And he moved on. Then Reverend Warnock, the Democrat from Georgia, speaks. He speaks in support of Katanji Brown Jackson. He says it is a great day for this. He calls it, remember, he's a reverend, so he speaks very, I say, poetically, and I think that's because his background is as a reverend. That's what he did for a living, speak with emotion and meaning. He says that this is a great day for the sacred covenant of the American people, embodied by the phrase "E pluribus unum," out of many one. He says this is embodiment of an arc of our history, and she represents America at its best. And he talked about her poise and composure and amazing grace under pressure. And he says Georgia wants fair, qualified judges that are going to protect the constitutional rights for everyone. So he spoke in support. Then we had Maggie Wood Hassan, I think, Democrat from New Hampshire. I couldn't watch this on C-SPAN. I had to watch it on something else, as I had to watch like the last 2 days on something else. I don't know what C-SPAN was doing for those days during the historic event, whether anyone likes it or not, agrees with it or not. It's still a historic event. Now, granted, just because C-SPAN doesn't cover it, it's still live on the Senate website. They live stream floor proceedings, but I just really thought that was interesting. I like to watch things on C-SPAN because C-SPAN puts their name, their Republican or Democrat, and their state up. And I think they put their ages up too, which is a little shady. But it's really helpful when you're doing this type of thing. So anyways, she speaks. She's in support of Katanji Brown Jackson. Then she goes on to talk about gas pricing. And then there's a back and forth between her and another senator about gas prices. It was very important, very meaningful, but not the topic of conversation in this particular video. Then Chuck Schumer announces that there's going to be a roll call vote at 1:45 p.m. He asked that all senators be seated for the vote. Then he goes away. William Bill Cassidy, the Republican from Louisiana, he gets up and speaks about school choice, charter schools, and he gives a special shout out to Robert J. Wright in Shreveport, Louisiana, who is entering retirement. I thought that was very cool. Senator Grassley speaks again. Republican. He says that he's interested in fair processes. He gripes about the fact they don't have the non-public sentencing commission records. And again, non-public, what type of non-public? At this point, I just feel like they had something from the sentencing commission. So it's not like they didn't have anything from her time in the sentencing commission. But you guys know what I told you. Sometimes in the interest of facilitating a fair, honest meeting, you don't want outside influences. You don't want donors. You don't want people afraid of donors and polling and that type of stuff, which is one of the reasons why the Supreme Court is set up the way it's set up. But maybe I'm missing a point there. He says they don't have the pre-sentencing reports, blah, blah, blah. So let me decode what he's saying for you. So he's saying that she didn't go through the same process as everybody else. That's basically what he got up there to say. So now, she didn't go through the same process. So, they just steamrolled her in. That's decoding that. He goes on to talk about judicial philosophy, and just recapping the Senate Judiciary hearing is basically what he did. We've heard this several times from him before. Again, at this point, the vote is today. You already said you weren't going to support the nominee. You've given reasons ad nauseum why you weren't going to support the nominee. Not only were you the ranking member on the committee, so that means you got to speak before everybody else with no time limit. Then you got to use your 30 minutes on one day. You spoke twice each day. You got to open, and then you got to do your round of questions. So you've already said you're not going to support her. You said it at Judiciary Committee. You've said it on the 3 or 4 days, however many days they had debate open for the nominee. And now you're saying it again. At this point, who are you trying to prove it for? Who are you trying to prove anything to? Us or you? But I guess as much camera time as you can get. Then Dick Durbin gets back up. And y'all know both of them were on the Senate Judiciary Committee. So y'all have spoken already. How much more camera time do you need? But Dick Durbin gets up. He talks about a monumental step forward. It's historic. Talks about the history of the first court, and he says that slaves and women had no place on the court. And he says the black women were only there to clean the court for a long time. And Katanji Brown Jackson represents a new chapter. He said a new chapter is started by the letters K, B, and J. And if I was him, I would not have said her initials. I'm going to let y'all figure out what her initials sound like and why, just historically, considering Russia and Ukraine and all types of acronyms we have. I will reveal something, you guys. I'm not a big fan of acronyms, overuse of acronyms. I think sometimes just say her whole name. I think he should just said her whole name. But, I get his point. He said, it's a new chapter in America. And he says that when their great-great-great-great-grandchildren asked the senators, where were they and how did they vote on this day? He said he's going to be proud to say how he voted. Then Mitch McConnell speaks. And at this point, we're about 10 to 15 minutes away from the vote. So I don't know what he got up there to talk for, because you've already said you're not going to support this woman. You've said it several times. What are you up here again for 10 minutes away from the vote. What do you think? What you think you're gonna do? But he says that uh, if Biden should have picked a moderate, again, that's not how it works. The president picks. I'm sure when the Democrats were complaining that President Trump should have picked a moderate, I said the same thing. Y'all are complaining, grow up. Oh, well, the president gets to pick. And the Republicans were saying the same thing to them. President gets to pick, grow up. He says that she's going to be very far to the left. And the far left got what they wanted, and fringe activists talks about dark money, and basically Mitch McConnell needs to go take his seat to vote, because we know you're not going to support her. You've said it several times. So we've heard it. We believe you the first time you said you weren't going to support her. Nobody thought you were going to change your mind. Nobody thought that anything between the first time you said you weren't going to support her was going to change your mind to now. To be honest with you, you made up your mind that you weren't going to support the nominee before we even got to the Senate Judiciary hearing. And I'm sure she met with you, and I'm sure you were very polite and nice, and I'm sure you asked some questions. You knew you weren't going to support her nomination then. We believe you at every step of the way. You weren't going to support her nomination. So what are you up here for? We knew. We still know. We believed you then. We didn't think you were going to change your mind. Go take your seat and get ready for the vote. That's vote no, like you said you were. And he did. Then Chuck Schumer speaks. This is right before the vote. Or this is him. I think he had to put the motion on the floor, call the vote. I didn't write down the exact wording of that. Per Robert Rules of Order, you guys, normally people say charge it to my head, not my heart. Y'all can charge that to my heart and not my head. Because if I wanted to learn Robert's Rules of Order, I probably could sit down and get more familiar with it. And it is important, for orderly conduct of business. Robert's Rules of Order has a very important place. Just, God bless me. Everybody has what they're interested in, and sometimes I just can't. Okay. So they vote. We're voting on the 116th Justice of the Supreme Court. And then he gives a speech about eighth graders and this and that. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, Chuck Schumer really should have kept that speech. Because when he was talking, the way he was talking, I don't know, but I just felt like if there were any Republicans who were thinking about, oh, well, maybe I'll just say I'll support her at the last minute, after he got done talking, they didn't want to support her anymore based on him. Sometimes it's okay to say less in life. I heard somewhere, never miss a good opportunity to be quiet. Sometimes it's good to do that. And I really think that he should have got up there, and maybe he could have put a lot of vitriol in his voice and, made it real dramatic when he read the Robert's Rules of Order to phrase the call of the question or call of the motion or whatever. But that speech wasn't it. Anyways, so now Kamala Harris comes and calls the question of the vote. I do not want to take away from the historicness of the moment, but Kamala Harris needs to stop all that giggling now. This woman was a prosecutor in California. And I know that when she was in court, she put some authority in her voice, and she spoke eloquently and profoundly. And I know she did not go in court with all that giggling. And I understand nervous laughter. I get all that. But I bet you when she was in court as a prosecutor, she did not have that nervous laughter. And I'm going to need her to put on her prosecuting face. What people say when they do sports and stuff, put your winning face on or put your game face on, things like that. I need her to put on her prosecution face when she comes to anything where there's going to be a camera. But it was a very historic moment of having an African American female vice president presiding over the Senate and calling the question to vote on an African American female, they're both the first African American female associate justice. So all the senators are in their desk, and I love it when they're all in their desk for a vote. It is very much historic and official, and it's just uniquely American. And maybe I'm a nerd. Not maybe, I probably am, but it's something about that I just love. Okay, so all senators are seated for a roll call vote. And it, of course, 53 to 47. And there's a big round of applause. The question passes, and Katanji Brown Jackson will become the 116th Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. There is a big round of applause. And if you were watching it on screen, all of the Republican senators who didn't vote for her left the room. And there's one moment where you see people walking around Mitt Romney. You guys know Mitt Romney is very tall. It's a very imposing figure. They're, doing the boot scoot and boogie around him as he is just standing up clapping. But it was wonderful. I don't know if we can now call her Justice Katanji Brown Jackson because she hasn't been sworn in, but this is almost the finale. Justice Breyer will not officially leave the court until the summer, which is the end of this Supreme Court term. So she will probably be officially sworn in the summer, I want to say. If you're thinking about why it was that Amy Coney Barrett was sworn in the night of her confirmation vote, that's because Ruth Bader Ginsburg, God rest her soul, she had passed away. So the vacancy was open. She was able to walk on the court that day. She didn't need to wait to the end of the term. She didn't need to wait for somebody to step down. So that's why Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation swearing was right after. Whereas Katanji Brown Jackson has to wait until term ends, and then Justice Breyer will officially step down, and then she will be sworn in, and she will take her place for the new term. So, there's a big applause and celebrations. The Democrats had a press conference. The Democrats from the Senate Judiciary had a press conference after, and then I can't remember if it was just the Republicans from the Judiciary Committee or if it was just a group of Republicans, but they had a news conference after. And then the next day, which is today, depending on when I get this video up, Friday, April 8th, they had a celebration out on the lawn of the White House where Joe Biden spoke, and Kamala Harris spoke, and Justice Katanji Brown Jackson spoke. And it's very, very moving, very historic moment to be a part of, I guess. So I will be back, I'm sure, for her swear-in ceremony, maybe. In some form or fashion, I'll be back for that. And that's all I really have today. So this is kind of the finale. I will be doing more of these recap and reviews. If there are any hearings, congressional hearings, Senate hearings that you guys want me to recap and review, go to www.nreblawg.com and fill out the contact form and give me a suggestion. If I can find the full hearing, I most likely will do it. If it's something that interests me, I'm not gonna lie. Some of them I just can't sit through. Some of them are topics that go way above my head, but I like doing this. So, in conclusion, I would just like to thank you guys for following me as I recap and review the saga that was the road to the 116th Justice of the United States Supreme Court, and that is Justice Katanji Brown Jackson. Until next time, please visit www.nreblawg.com. It's scrolling at the bottom of the screen. That's www.nreblawg.com. I'm DC the Blacksmith, and until next time, stay informed.